Are people like Tucker and MTG, are they pro-Palestine or are they just anti-Israel? Two different things. But even if you accept that they are, they're horrible on a lot of other issues we should also care about. If you actually care about the human rights of Palestinians, you should also care about the human rights of people in detention, in ICE detention facilities in the US. You should care about minorities and migrants who are being repressed here in the US. There are people that the MTGs and Tuckers and Candaces don't.
Mehdi Hasan on his video show has issued a warning to people on the left, Democrats, progressives, or whatever term you want to use, about trusting far-right figures like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Megyn Kelly, who appear to be anti-Trump at the moment, and we're going to take a look at clips of what Mehdi Hasan had to say about Tucker Carlson and the rest. And I want to share my thoughts on this as well because I think this is an interesting topic, so let's get into it. Together.
How do we avoid getting catfished by a Democrat who uses pro-Palestine and affordability language publicly, but has no real belief in those ideas, aka Gavin? And then Sam W. adds, from a multi-generational family of anti-war, pro-human rights Democrats. My entire family identity is opposition against this and genocide. I'm independent now because I can't stand being in the same party as genocidal warmongers. WTF am I supposed to do? Vote for Tucker?
Well, Tucker's not running. Let's just if he runs, cross that bridge. I think you've got to be. So I interviewed Noura Erakat, the Palestinian-American academic in New York last week. We're going to be airing that interview either later tonight or tomorrow. Look out for it in your inboxes if you're a Zateo subscriber. Another reason to subscribe, Zateo.com. Noura made a very good point. You may have heard the phrase PEP, progressive except Palestine. People who are really, really left-wing, really, really liberal, except on Palestine, then they're pro-Israel. You see that in the Democratic Party all the time. But what Noura said, something I'd never come across, she talked about POPs. And I said to Noura, I'm going to steal, I'm going to talk about it all the time. Progressive only on Palestine. Right? That's your issue that you care about, but you don't care about other issues that are related. For example, you're opposed to the detention of Palestinians by Israel, but you don't speak out against mass incarceration at home. You don't take progressive stances on issues that are very similar to the issues you care about in Gaza and the West Bank. And I think that's an important way of looking at this, because even if you agree that Tucker Carlson is good, quote unquote, on Palestine, and I think Ta-Nehisi Coates made a good point the other day, are people like Tucker and MTG, are they pro-Palestine or are they just anti-Israel? Two different things. But even if you accept that they are, they're horrible on a lot of other issues we should also care about. If you actually care about the human rights of Palestinians, you should also care about the human rights of people in detention, in ICE detention facilities in the US. You should care about minorities and migrants who are being repressed here in the US. There are people that the MTGs and Tuckers and Candaces don't care about. They support those crackdowns. You should also care about Black Lives Matter. You should care about mass incarceration of black people and horrible repression of minority communities. Those are all issues that you should also care about. And therefore, the vehicle for that cannot be the current Republican Party, even the MAGA anti-war movement, cannot be the Tucker Carlson, because they don't care about all those issues. And so to the questioner who says, I can't bear to be in the Democratic Party with genocidal warmongers, I get it. 100%. I wouldn't want to be in a party with Josh Gottheimer or John Fetterman. They're repulsive human beings. And Joe Biden was complicit in a genocide and should be punished for that, but he never will be. But in that Democratic Party, there are also people like Delia Ramirez, who's right now trying to block bombs from being sent to Israel. Member of Congress from Illinois. There's people like Greg Kasar, the chair of the Progressive Caucus, who's been very outspoken about military aid to Israel. There's people like AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna, who has led the charge against the war in Iran and tried to put out the war powers resolution that they'll be voting on maybe later this week. There are people running in primaries right now in places like New Jersey calling out Israel. There's a Democratic mayor of New York who's willing to call Trump a fascist to his face and say the G word, genocide, in the Oval Office, Zoran Mamdani. So if we reduce the Democratic Party just to, people like the warmongers, I think that's a disservice. And I think it's elevating Tucker Carlson to a level he doesn't deserve because, as I say, yes, he's been good on Israel, good on Iran. But is he good on the other issues we should all care about? That's a question we still have to answer. And as for the question about, what was the previous question? There was a link question. Yes, catfishing. 100% yes. Agree on the cat. It's a very dangerous strategy that the Democrats are adopting, not just because people are going to fall for it and think, oh, these guys are pro-Palestine now, and they're not. And actually, we saw that in 2020. Do you remember, Prem? There were some people running in 2020 in the primary who said, oh, I won't go to the AIPAC convention. That was their way of signaling that they had moved on Palestine. I think Kamala Harris was one of them. And I think it's very easy rhetorically to say, oh, I get it, I'm shifting with the base. And then once you get elected, carry on selling weapons to Israel and say, well, that's fine. Biden did it. Do you remember Biden in 2020 said, we're going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah? People were, oh yeah, people like me were like, good, I'm glad he said that. And then he became president and was fist bumping with MBS, if you remember. So yes, it is very easy for people to lie to you during primary campaigns. That's why we need more candidates running. That's why we need more progressives on the debate stage to call each other out. That's why we need people to be held to account during the primary process, not have any kind of coronation. Have your Ro Khannas and AOCs and Chris Van Hollands and others, John Ossoff, let's see, running, where they can actually have on stage, hold each other to account on this crucial issue of genocide and foreign wars.
I think all that's very, very well put, and I would just add that I totally understand the impulse by a lot of people to desire and wish for this coalition building to break through the duopoly, and I think there's actually a lot of movement on that. I think one thing that I think is important is to have like some self-respect and self-dignity in what you already believe in your position, which is to say, there was this great TikTok comment I saw on a video of Tucker, as usual, lately kind of cooking, and someone said, pay attention, you're not agreeing with Tucker Carlson. He's agreeing with you. And I think it's high time for a lot of people to own their position.
Yes, there's a weird deference.
Can be because of you.
Yes. There's a weird deference to the right? It's like I always make this joke as a Muslim. I can make this joke, which is like if you're in Muslim communities, there's always this thing about like which famous white person is going to convert to Islam. When I was growing up, is Michael Jackson a Muslim? Is somebody else a Muslim? Is Simon Cowell a Muslim? And we're like, why are we so insecure that we need other people to convert to Islam? I remember that, and I feel like the left has a version of that, which is like, which right winger is saying something we agree with? Isn't that amazing that right winger said it? And it's like there are people on the left who are already saying that, who are not getting credit. And I got criticized rightly by a bunch of people recently when I praised Tucker Carlson on the Economist interview when he called out the right to exist propaganda. And I said, first time someone's done that on mainstream media. And people point out, that's not true. Ta-Nehisi Coates did it to Tony DeCopel in that famous CBS News, that CBS Morning interview. I'd forgotten that. Fair point. Ta-Nehisi did it first. So you're right. That comment you're quoting, absolutely brilliant. We should accept that people are coming to our way of thinking and not chase after crumbs from the right-wing table.
So spot on from Mehdi Hasan, I believe. And I have two words that I think prove he is right about what he is saying. And those two words are Liz Cheney. And remember, it has only been a little over a year since Kamala Harris was campaigning alongside Liz Cheney, and a lot of people on the left or in the Democratic Party or progressives were angry about that because Liz Cheney stands against many of the core beliefs people on the left hold. She simply happened to oppose Trump, mainly because Donald Trump had insulted her father, similar to how he criticized the Bush family, and that personal conflict shaped a lot of that divide, because Liz Cheney was never really against Trump on policy and in fact supported many of his policies. So the question becomes, why would Democrats align with someone like that? And this is why I think Mehdi Hasan is correct in his warning that figures like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Megyn Kelly, who may appear to be shifting positions on issues like war in Iran or Israel, should be viewed carefully, because as Hasan argues, the question is whether they are truly pro-Palestine or simply anti-Israel, and in many cases it seems more about opposing certain policies like foreign spending rather than a consistent ideological position. Which is why, even if some of their points overlap with left-wing arguments about ending funding or reducing weapon shipments and focusing money domestically, it does not necessarily mean full agreement on the broader political direction behind those arguments. All these billions of dollars that we are sending to the Middle East, let's spend that money here at home instead. We can use it for Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, improving our schools and other public services, but the right wing is generally against many of those programs. So I think Mehdi Hasan and his editor Prem are correct in framing this as Tucker Carlson coming closer to your position on certain issues rather than you moving into his camp, because these are not people who are likely to fully align with progressive politics, and I don't see that kind of long-term shift happening. For example, Megyn Kelly has said that she would not support Democrats even under extreme scenarios, so what we are seeing is a kind of strange bedfellow situation, a term I understood before but only fully related to recently, where figures like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Megyn Kelly might agree on a small number of issues while strongly disagreeing on everything else, and this is not really a full political alignment, it is more selective agreement on specific topics like foreign policy or spending, even when you look at Tucker Carlson producing long discussions on topics like religion or even controversial ideas such as demon possession with a Catholic priest, which shows how unusual his range of content is. And while I would not agree with many of his broader views and would consider them extreme, he still occasionally aligns with certain criticisms of foreign policy, which can be used to support specific arguments, but that does not necessarily make him a consistent ally of progressive politics, and that is why the concern is whether these figures should be seen as temporary allies on isolated issues or not, because the idea of the enemy of your enemy being your friend does not always apply in politics. So what do you think about this argument and Mehdi Hasan's warning?